Hello, and welcome to Day by Day True Crime Stories, the podcast where we explore a different crime or justice milestone from this day in history. I'm your host, Kona Gallagher, and today is May 27th. On this day in 2011, a 26-year-old nursing student named Michelle Lee vanished from the parking garage from a hospital in Hayward, California. What began as a missing persons case soon became something far darker and far more personal. Behind the scenes was a disturbing story of jealousy, obsession, and betrayal. Today, we'll walk through Michelle Lee's life, the day she disappeared, and the investigation that brought justice to her family. Let's get started. Michelle Hong Thi Lee was a bright, compassionate, and focused young woman who had already endured her share of hardship. She was born in 1984 in San Diego, California, and as a child, she lost her mother to cancer. Those who knew her said she had a nurturing spirit and a strong sense of purpose, which eventually led her to pursue a career in healthcare. She graduated from Mount Carmel High School and went on to study at San Jose State University. Eventually, she transferred to Samuel Merritt University in Oakland, where she was pursuing her Bachelor of Science in Nursing. In 2011, she was well on her way to becoming a registered nurse and was doing clinical rotations at Kaiser Permanente Hospital in Hayward, California. Her instructors described her as driven, dependable, and kind. She was someone who not only took her studies very seriously, but truly cared about her patients. Her cousin, Christine Din, later said, quote, "She was the kind of person who would drop everything to help you if you needed it. She was just that kind of person," end quote. Michelle stayed close with her family despite her busy schedule. She was always present for family events and regularly checked in with loved ones, and was just the kind of friend that people could count on as well. Everyone around her believed that she was only months away from fulfilling her dreams, and they were all rooting for her. May 27, 2011 began just like any other day for Michelle. That evening, she was scheduled to work a clinical shift at Kaiser. Around 7 p.m., she told classmates that she was stepping out to her car, a white 1999 Honda CR-V that was parked in the hospital garage. But Michelle never came back. At first, no one panicked. Students often ran errands or stepped out during breaks. But as the hours passed and Michelle didn't return to her shift or respond to texts or calls, concerns started to grow. And her family hadn't heard from her either. The next morning, her car was found abandoned on Ponderosa Court, just a half-mile from the hospital. The car was locked, and her phone and other belongings were missing. But the location seemed random. Michelle had no known ties to that neighborhood, and there wasn't a reason that anybody could think of as to why her car would be there. Thankfully, the Hayward Police Department responded quickly. Officers reviewed surveillance footage and confirmed that Michelle had walked into the garage that night. But there was no footage of her leaving, and that discovery changed everything. As the search for Michelle intensified, her family mobilized. Her brother, Michael Lee, made public pleas for help, telling reporters, quote, "We just want her back. There's no way she would disappear without contacting us," end quote. With the support of the Class Kids Foundation, Michelle's loved ones organized large-scale search efforts. Hundreds of volunteers joined in, many of them strangers who had just been moved by Michelle's story. But the tone shifted on June 6th, just 10 days after she vanished. Hayward police held a press conference to announce that the case was now being treated as a homicide. Lieutenant Roger Keener stated, quote, "The totality of the evidence leads us to believe that Michelle has become the victim of a homicide," end quote. The announcement stunned Michelle's family. Her cousin Christine told reporters, quote, "It feels like a punch in the stomach. But even though police say she's gone, we're not giving up," end quote. But behind the scenes, investigators had discovered disturbing evidence. Traces of Michelle's blood were found in the hospital garage and inside her car. DNA tests confirmed the match. It was becoming increasingly clear that this wasn't a case of a woman who had simply vanished. Michelle was the victim of a violent crime. And then a name surfaced. Giselle Esteban. Esteban and Michelle had once been friends. They'd gone to high school together in San Diego and had reconnected in Northern California. But the relationship had soured. Esteban believed that Michelle was interfering in her relationship with her ex-boyfriend, who was also the father of her child. Investigators discovered that Esteban had been stalking Michelle. Her phone records placed her at the hospital the night that Michelle disappeared. And what's more, surveillance video showed her in the garage just minutes before Michelle arrived. And then there were the messages, the digital evidence of Giselle Esteban's obsession. In one recorded conversation, Esteban said that she hated Michelle, quote, with all my heart, and added, quote, I really want to kill her, end quote. Still, without a body, police held off on an arrest. They kept watching and building their case. And then finally, on September 7th, more than 3 months after Michelle vanished, Giselle Esteban was arrested and charged with murder. Then, just 10 days later, on September 17th, search volunteers found human remains under a tree in a remote canyon near Sunol. On September 19th, the Alameda County coroner confirmed that the remains belonged to Michelle Lee. Her brother, Michael, told reporters, quote, we didn't want this to be the outcome, but now we can begin to grieve and move forward. We can finally say goodbye, end quote. At the time of Giselle Esteban's arrest, she was pregnant with her second child. She pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder. The trial began in September 2012. Prosecutors argued that the crime was premeditated, pointing to surveillance video, DNA evidence, and recordings where Esteban expressed her violent intentions. Deputy District Attorney Butch Ford laid out the theory. Esteban lured Michelle into a false sense of safety. She waited in the garage, attacked Michelle, and later moved her body to a remote location. Esteban's attorney, Andrea Auer, didn't deny that her client had killed Michelle. Instead, she argued that it was a spontaneous act. It was a crime of passion. Esteban believed that Michelle had ruined her life, she said, and lost control in a moment of rage. But the jury didn't accept that explanation. After just 6 hours of deliberation, they found Esteban guilty of first-degree murder. On November 26, 2012, she was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. Michael Lee spoke publicly after the verdict, saying, quote, we were hoping and praying the jury would make the right call, and this is it. It's a tremendous burden lifted, end quote. But he added, quote, there is no real closure, but we finally have accountability, end quote. Michelle's family refuses to let her be remembered only for how she died. They created the Michelle Lee Foundation, which awards scholarships to nursing students and supports programs addressing violence against women. Michael Lee said, quote, we want to keep her spirit alive, and if we can help other people along the way, then that's how we heal, end quote. Even though Giselle Esteban never expressed remorse, the Lee family chose to focus forward. Michael said, quote, she made her choices, but this isn't her story. This is Michelle's story, end quote. Michelle wasn't just a victim. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, and a future nurse. And she mattered deeply to those around her. And now, more than a decade later, her name still means something because of the light she brought and the legacy that her family refused to let fade. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of Day by Day True Crime Stories. If you found Michelle's story compelling, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. It'll help us grow. And be sure to join me again tomorrow as we explore another significant event in true crime history. Until then, stay safe and remember that behind every headline is a life worth remembering. Day by Day, True Crime Stories is a Little Monster production.
Hey, you can do it!